Hi, friend. Niclas here. Welcome to another episode of the Your Audio Solutions podcast, where it's my mission to find the tools and methods from the people that inspire you so you can apply their knowledge to your own life and work. On the show today, we have singer songwriter Cindy Alexander. And Cindy has been nominated and have also won several awards as a singer songwriter. For example, from the Los Angeles Music Awards, JPF Music Awards, and All Access Music Awards. And it was a real pleasure having Cindy on. She lives in Big Sur. This is a quick side note, but yeah, she lives in Big Sur, which I only been to once, but that's probably the most beautiful place I've ever been to in my whole life so far. So real jealous of her living there, but also real pleasure talking to her. And it was real fascinating learning about Cindy's entrepreneurial spirit, which she's had since the beginning, and also because she is independent. That's something that has been required, but it almost sounds like she had studied entrepreneurship and read a lot of books, but she hasn't. But still, she has applied all the rules someone who might have read a lot of books about entrepreneurial, like having your own business, would know. And she has applied all that throughout her music career. And I thought it was really fascinating. Like she was implementing self-funding, or not self-funding, but fan funding her music before Kickstarter was even a thing. I mean, she knew how to add value to fans and doing all that to sustain her career. And that was really fascinating to learn about. And I think if you're in a band or an artist, I think you can learn a lot from that too. And we also spoke about cancer because Cindy has suffered from cancer, is still dealing with it. And yeah, it's real painful cancer. I mean, because so many people have it, and I'm sure you know someone who have maybe died from it or is suffering from it at the moment. And I know my granddad, he passed away from prostate cancer. So it's something that everyone has to deal with. Is shit, but I'm really grateful that Cindy shared her experience and how she's dealing with it now and how she dealt with it when she found out, because it's real tough. So yeah, I really appreciate her sharing that with us. And if you are going through this or know someone who has gone through it, I think this could be beneficial for you to maybe hear and hear someone else talk about their experience. But yeah, cancer sucks, and if you feel anything abnormal with your body or something like that, do go to a doctor and check it out. I know it's scary as hell. I have had some stuff I thought, oh, is this cancer? And you don't want to go to the doctor check it out because you don't want to hear the doctor say you might have cancer. That, I mean, scary as hell, but it's still better doing that than not treating it in time, I guess. But it's not something you want to deal with. But if you feel it something weird within yourself, go check it out. It's for your own good. So yeah, it's a tough thing, cancer, but yeah, not real pleasure, but that's something we talk about in the podcast as well. But yeah, anyhow, I hope you will enjoy this conversation with Cindy. I know it was a real pleasure me talking to her. And also, before we get into the podcast, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or hit the like button. Or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, subscribe there too, and Spotify. And if you want exclusive access to interviews before the public, please check out the Audio Tribe. There's a link to that in the description below. It's free, of course. Just enter your name and email address, and you have joined the Audio Tribe email list. And if you do that, you get exclusive access to interviews before the public and much more stuff I like to do as it grows and grows. So please check that out as well. But that's it. Let's get into the interview with Cindy Alexander. So please enjoy. You're in LA, right? That's where you're based.
Yes. Well, no, I used to live in Los Angeles. I moved up to Big Sur, which is where I live
Big Sur.
now.
Yeah.
It's a place called the Carmel Highlands. So I'm in the wilderness. And I'll show, I don't know if you can see, or can you see out the window?
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? I say where the forest meets the sea.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I've been to
Yeah.
Big Sur only once, a few years ago, and
Yeah.
still to this day, that's the most beautiful place I've been to, actually.
I,
Yeah,
to me, it's heaven on earth.
yeah. I mean, that's so awesome that you live there, because I mean, just looking outside the window is like, I don't know if you can see my window here, but that's UK is great raining.
Oh, we had a huge storm last night, and I woke up and the ground was white,
Wow.
and it's gone now, but it was really beautiful. I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
It, this is new for us. We vacationed here. We started coming here 5 years ago, and absolutely fell in love with it. And then um, this year, 2020, after my mom passed away, and the pandemic, and the protests, and the fires, we just said, someday is now. And we packed up and we moved up here with the kids.
Oh, nice. What was your house affected by the fires or no?
Well, it wasn't. It was very hard to breathe. We lived
Right.
in the middle of a lot of fires. We lived very close to a place called Griffith Park, and there's a lot
Hmm.
of brush and hillside. So, there was always a threat of fires. I mean, there's fires here too, but the air is crystal clear. It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm jealous. I mean, yeah, like I said, Big Sur is just too beautiful.
Well, Nicholas, next time you come to Big Sur, I will host you, and
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
a cup of tea on the deck, and I will take you on a trail through a redwood forest. How's that?
That sounds awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so make it happen. You got to make it happen now. I put the idea in your head, so get out here when you can.
Exactly, exactly. Just gotta wait for all these restrictions to go down, I guess.
Oh, and yep. I know. I don't hug people. I'm a hugger, and I can't hug anyone right
Hmm.
now. The
What was the?
restrictions.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry. Go
sorry.
ahead.
No, I just said the restrictions. You don't realize how much they're weighing on you
Hmm.
until all of a sudden. I mean, for me, I've had moments where I've just broken down into tears, and I'm like, why am I crying? I live in this incredible place. I'm with my family. I'm not alone. But I just realized that it's just been the trauma of a year that we've all experienced. It hits us all in different ways and at different times.
Hmm. Exactly. I mean, how's the US doing now? Because all I hear about, obviously, is the UK, and they're doing pretty well, like vaccinating people and stuff. But
Uh,
it seems like US is doing pretty well there too, right? Or am I wrong?
Well, I think it all depends on where you live.
Right.
Like I live in Monterey County, and the vaccine rollout is very slow,
Hmm.
and they keep running out. So
Right.
it really depends on where you live and who you're connected to. Because I know people down in Los Angeles that in no way are in the correct tier, and yet they've been vaccinated. So
Wow.
I'm not really sure how it's all going. I think it's better. I mean, I think that we can peek under the COVID curtain now and go, okay, I see some light,
Hmm.
and it's getting better. My dad got vaccinated,
Oh,
so
good.
he was able to come up here and be with us, which was wonderful. It's getting better. It is getting better, but I think that we're all still reeling from the effects, and fear that we could have another surge. I don't know. Do you live alone, or are you?
No, so I live with my fiance, and at the moment we live with her parents until, yeah, it's a big. We were selling our flat in London, and then
Huh.
the sale, what's it called? The sale didn't go through like twice.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
now we sold it a third time, hopefully. And when
yeah.
that's all completed, we will get our own house up here. So yeah, we're living at the moment with my fiance's parents.
But that's nice.
Yeah.
You guys together. That's a wonderful thing. We had that happen too when we were selling our house in LA. We had the sale fall through. So I know what that feels like. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So,
It's super no. I never experienced it before, and it's just because we moved everything from London all to a
uh-huh.
storage here in Leeds, and then then 2 months in, it just yeah, you got cancelled or whatever you want to call it. It fell through
Yeah,
essentially.
sorry. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so Cindy, I was listening to I think it's your first record. See Red, is that your first record?
Oh, yes, back from recorded in 1998, released in
Yeah,
1999.
yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
you went back way far.
Hey, it's a great record. It sounded, I don't know where you recorded, but it sounded like you went to Nashville, made a record, but that might be completely not true.
I'll tell you the story about that.
Yeah.
So the story behind See Red is that I had just been offered a tour with the Bacon Brothers. That's Kevin Bacon and Michael Bacon's band. And I didn't have a CD yet. All I had were my demos. So my co-writer, Paul Trudeau, he had been working with Meredith Brooks with a producer named Dave Darling. So he said, let's bring these over to Dave Darling and maybe he can mix them up and we can add some more songs and get you a CD. So that's what we did. I met Dave. I love Dave. He has become a lifelong friend and mentor. He's produced many of my CDs. And I finished up that record and packaged it up, and that was See Red.
Cool. So was that
Yeah.
independently done, or were you signed to a label, or what was the story behind
No,
that?
I was completely indie. I had been offered a deal at the time, but they were always offering less than what I could make on my own. When you are touring and you're opening up for major artists that are filling, performing art centers and things like that, which is what I was doing, and you own your record, every sale goes to you. And I could make records for really cheap. And once you're signed to a label, they'll give you, at that time, it was an indie label that was trying to sign me, and I think they wanted to give me $10,000. Well, I make $10,000 by, selling the first batch of CDs that I make, and I get my money back, and then it's all profit. So I just never went that route. And I was using platforms like mp3.com and Napster, the internet, music was taking off on the internet and going viral in a way that's different, obviously, than it is for now. But it was offering me opportunities to tour around the world because of the fans. Like the fans would say, please come to Germany. I'm like, all right, find me a promoter or let's set up some shows. And they would. And at the time, I was single and had no strings, and I just would hop on a plane, and people were amazing. People put me up in their homes and booked shows for me and got me on the radio. And it was a wonderful, wonderful time for music if you embraced the technology. And I think that is one of the challenges, to keep evolving as technology evolves, as people's consumption changes from cassettes to CDs to vinyl to just streaming, whatever it is. It's all about just trying to stay ahead of that curve. But for me, always realizing that my success was dependent on my connection with fans, and I never wanted to cut that off. So when I signed to Blue Elan is still, it's an indie label. They still give us a lot of creative control. So at the time, it was the right move for me.
Right. That's so cool that you actually took advantage of Napster, because, I mean, I was pretty young back then, but I mean, that, and yeah, what I remember is like bands hated it, like let's say like bands like Metallica, they were like all against it and stuff like that. But
Right. So this is how I used it. I'd hop on Napster and I'd try to find out who had my records, and then I would say, hey, how'd you hear about Cindy Alexander? And they would tell me, mp3.com, or what was the other one? It was MySpace, something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm Cindy Alexander. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for listening to my music. And they're like, there's no way you're Cindy Alexander. She wouldn't have a dial-up connection, which I did. I was like dial-up on AOL. And I'm like, no, it's really me. And I would connect with people and then encourage them to, if they liked what they heard, maybe to support me in other ways, share my music, maybe purchase a CD or a T-shirt, come to a show. So it was always, I couldn't fight it. It wasn't worth it. And the problem is, like today, especially the younger generations, including you probably don't need to pay for music, right? So, but when you love someone's art, there's other ways to support them nowadays. There's Patreon, which I love. I love my Patreon because it's not just about music. It's about connecting, and we do Zoom calls, and we, I do live streams, and they have all my behind the scenes footage. They have all the demos to my records. They can request songs and I'll cover them and put them on there. So there's different ways to monetize, which we have to. This is our career. I mean, I have to put food on the table. I've got children. I can't, take away from that. So I have to figure out how to monetize, but at the same time, acknowledge that art nowadays, so much of it is freely accessible. So how do we work with that to our advantage and go, okay, you found me. Thank you. Thank you so much. You've helped me. You're listening, and that's why I make music. So now how can we make this a mutually beneficial situation?
Yeah, that's really fascinating because I mean let's get into that, but also how do you know to make that move back then 98, 99 when it was also new? Was there anyone telling you to do it, or were just some like intuition you had like, oh, this seems like a good
Okay.
idea?
It's interesting that you're asking me this now. I did have a friend who was signed to a label at the time, and he gave me a lot of direction. It was interesting because I learned what worked for him and what didn't work for him, and that's somebody named Kevin Montgomery, who you might know. He plays around the UK.
Hmm.
I had been taking a marketing class at UCLA Extension, and it was taught by the head of marketing for A&M Records, and they had us go to a show of their artist, which at the time was Kevin Montgomery. And I met him. Okay, now here's the problem. Now, this is what happens during COVID quarantine. My daughter has just walked in and she's just giving me hot chocolate. And she's
Oh.
trying to tell me she's on a break from school and she wants her hot chocolate. Okay, mommy's doing an interview and this is kind of awkward. So why don't you, dad can make you some hot chocolate? Otherwise, when I'm done, I'll make you some. Okay, honey? And if you could close the door, that would be great.
That's totally fine.
Okay, so that's real life.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so I learned a lot from Kevin. He was always really good at marketing his own stuff. Um, and you meet other artists online that are doing what you're doing. But I'd like to think I was ahead of the curve on some of these things. I was fan funding way before Kickstarter. Um, I remember hearing that Hall and Oates had fan funded a record like way back, I think in the early 2000s. And I thought that was a great idea. So I had put it out to my fan base. I had a record at the time called Angels and Demons. And I said, if you want to be my angel, I'll put your name in the credits. We'll do a CD release party. For this much money, you can come to the studio. So this was way before Kickstarter. I never used a platform. The money just came straight to me. And that's how I funded my records up until the time I was signed. It was my fans, paid in advance for autographed copies, for CD release parties, for access to the studio, all that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
kind of, I've always kept my eyes and ears open to see what's going on out there. But but Kevin was great. And he actually called me recently and he said, you need to get on Clubhouse.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And of course, me being like a mom now and like trying to have a career while taking care of the kids. I mean, I'm missing out on some of the new stuff.
But I don't know if you need to bother with Clubhouse. I mean, I mean, I'm pretty bad with going on what's trendy. Uh,
Yeah,
but I don't know. Do you have a Clubhouse?
I just joined
Hmm.
Clubhouse, but I haven't done anything yet. I went into one room so far, and
Yeah.
it was fascinating. It is
Right.
interesting. It's like this. It's like you meet somebody totally new, and you make a connection, and you never know where that's going to go.
That's
Like
true.
I just invited you to Big Sur. Um,
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
you you never know, and you might learn something. There's a lot of people sharing, what works for them, and I think it'll be interesting to
Hmm.
connect with some people on there. What I won't do is TikTok. I
Right.
refuse to do that.
Right. That's
It's just
something I just got actually the other day. I just thought, oh, let's just try TikTok, see what happens.
what did you think?
I mean, I just posted 2 clips. I'm just gonna try post like once a week, maybe like clips from interviews, and just see what
Uh-huh.
happens. Because I don't really know TikTok at all. All I know is there's a lot of kids on there
So you mean
doing.
you're not going to post what I'm saying about TikTok on TikTok?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So the problem that I find with that is I am on TikTok to monitor my kids.
Oh yeah.
And what I saw on TikTok, I was like I was nauseous. I saw like videos of people teaching kids how to shoplift, sex
Really?
trafficking.
Shit.
It was completely inappropriate. And I thought, how can I go on a platform that I
Hmm.
am telling my kids that I really don't approve of if you have to do it? Oh, here now we have a kitten. Here, kitty cat. Um, how can I do that? And it would be hypocritical. So.
Yeah, I didn't know there was actually that sort of stuff going on TikTok. I mean, all I see is
Oh.
Gordon Ramsay dancing with his kid, you know?
Well, obviously, but I'm monitoring my kids. So
Right, right.
somebody that they're following is causing the news feed to deliver this stuff. So
Hmm.
maybe when you got on and you weren't monitoring a middle school girl
Hmm.
who likes to cosplay, you got a much better feed than I did.
Right, makes sense. But so
Yeah.
what's really fascinating is like, yeah, you mentioned you were doing basically a Kickstarter before Kickstarter was a thing. Uh,
Yeah.
but even back then, was it even like what made you think about doing that? Was that because of that class, or was it just from other experiences you've had, or?
It was just me. Well, I was very social at the time. I was always going out to shows. I was going to, artist conventions, and I was aware of, what was out there and what was available. And because I was doing so well selling my own records, um, it was like I created my own label. I created Jamcat Records. And at one point, I even had a distribution deal. um, it was through, it's so interesting because we're with Orchard right now, but I was with Orchard because somebody at Best Buy wanted to carry my records.
Hmm.
So they're like, we need to get you a distribution deal because I can't buy them directly from you. So the buyer at Best Buy got me a distribution deal. um I was just kind of going with the flow and seeing what worked, and the fan funding thing was really working for me, so I just kept doing it. And then Kickstarter started and people were like, why don't you just do it on Kickstarter? I'm like, why would I
Hmm.
give them 20%
Right.
of what I'm making just because they have a platform? My fans are fine just writing a check.
Hmm.
So I just kept it that way. um I real It was always like people would say, well, if you're on one of these platforms, then people might discover you through somebody else. But I didn't believe that.
Hmm.
I am very supportive of other artists, and I will turn my fans on to other people that I absolutely believe in. But I wasn't about to hand over my mailing list, something
Hmm.
that I curated, to a platform to use it, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah,
So
I mean that's really, yeah, really fascinating to hear. And also, you mentioned email list, and I'm not sure you know this, but yeah, email list is where.
is
Say it again.
the email lists are kind of dead right now, but
Is
email
it?
lists are, you tell me, email lists are
Yeah,
what?
my understanding is that email list is where the money is. Like, don't care about social media as long as you're building an email list. That's your true fans. Like you saw back then. Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right.
Mm.
Email lists are not dead. It's just that the problem is that 20,000 email lists that I had from '99. Eventually, people change. They put on
Right.
their spyware. They put on, if it's a mass email, it's all automatically goes into spam. So I had to like kind of redo it over the years
Mm.
and recreate it. But you're right. You can make a living off a smaller but rabid fan base,
Mm.
you know so it's cultivating that email list to true fans, people who want everything that you've ever created. And it's not just about the music, it's also about the person, and it's about the connection. um I know that there might be somebody that follows me not because they like my songs, but because they like my funny behind the scenes, or they appreciate, they know that I'm a breast cancer survivor and they're a breast cancer survivor, and they see me continuing to thrive, so they follow me for that reason. Like, you never know what is going to connect someone to you, and it's not always the product that you're trying to sell. And I
Mm.
think if you stop looking at it as selling products and you approach any kind of career in the arts as connection, sharing. We're given gifts, and we're given gifts to give them back. And when you do that, it, the satisfaction and the profit that can come from that, both emotionally, spiritually, and also monetarily, it's there because, as I said, it is our business. We have to figure that out, but it's much more fulfilling this way.
Exactly. But so all this, because it sounds to me like you've read up on running a business, entrepreneurship. Is that
No,
correct? No.
I learned by doing. I learned by doing. You
Mm,
know, I learn by watching other people. I see things that people do, and I'll say, "Oh, that's a great idea," or "That I am never going to do that." That kind
mm.
of thing.
What's the
You just
thing
have
you're
to.
never gonna do that you've seen?
Um, I don't think it's wise right now to get on the internet every single day and play music with a tip me jar on your
Mm,
newsfeed. I
mm,
think it comes off. First of all, the sound is mediocre at best.
mm,
And you can be the best singer and the best player in the world. It just doesn't sound that great. And I think right now the internet is oversaturated with people singing into their computers and selfies. And it's just, I'm overloaded by it. I don't like it anymore. And I turn it off. I'm like, please stop. Just stop. So I'm not going to do that.
mm,
And I have to, and I'm like, okay, do I really need to post this today? What is the value of this content?
mm,
Like, well, right now it's a content heavy time period for me because I'm releasing a record. I have a single that came out today. I have a video that comes out next week, and it's like this every single week until actually a few weeks. My record releases April 23rd, but I still have more new content that comes out after that. And I have to constantly post, and I have a label that encourages me and helps me build this content that I have to post. But there's other things that I'm about besides myself and besides my music, and I want to make sure that the feed that's out there is about other things that I care about as well, because as I said, people are not just connecting to the music, they're connecting to you, and I'm not just that record. You know what I'm
mm.
saying?
Yeah. Uh,
So the other thing I won't do is I don't like hip singing.
what's that?
That is when every word is like the English language is mutilated and they add like tonight becomes tonight. That thing, I
Ah,
won't do
okay.
that.
Well, that makes sense. But so,
I'm too old for it. That's all.
right. But so nowadays, I mean, you were
Yeah.
signed to a label, you said,
Yes.
um, but how? Because obviously you come from a background of being very entrepreneurial, to my
Mhm.
ears at least, or to my perception of
Yeah.
you. How do you
Yeah.
use that today to get more listeners? And I mean, you talked about it already a bit now, but is there anything else you're doing?
Okay. So one of the nice things about being on Blue Lawn Records is it's a collaborative label. And it encourages artists to work together and to do shows together. So it's great to be able to, like in the past, I've done shows with Chelsea Williams and with Scout Durwood, Colin Devlin. Colin is another artist on the label, and he produced one of my records, and we wrote together. I never would have met Colin. I never would have made that record were it not for Blue Lawn. It's great, to be on a label with, Jerry Beckley from America. I toured with Jerry, with America,
Hmm.
and so when they signed Rusty Young from Poco, I said, "Oh gosh, if you're going to do that, and you also have Jack Tempchin, the Eagles songwriter, you should think about getting Jerry Beckley." So that's cool. And Rusty Young played pedal steel on one of my cuts. So these are all things that would never have happened were I not on this label.
Right.
And I'm also able to make records with some musicians I never would have been able to afford to hire had I stayed indie. And all of these connections and broadening the social circle of the musicians and artists that I work with, that also helps expand a fan base.
Hmm.
As I said, like probably the biggest um, contributor to my mailing list was opening up for larger artists and winning over that fan base.
Hmm.
That really, really, really helps. So it's hard for me right now not to be able to tour.
Yeah, of
So the only way
course.
to tour right now and to get new fans is to post relevant, interesting content that you hope someone's going to share. It's really about word of mouth right now until we
Hmm.
can get out and tour again.
Yeah, definitely. But so how did you get those opening slots for the other bands? Was that through the label or was that before the label?
No. This is all stuff I did. I mean, this is all stuff that happened prior to me signing with Blue Elan. I signed with Blue Elan in 2014. But up until that point, I was constantly playing, and I built a really great fan base in Los Angeles. So when people would come through and they wanted to sell more tickets to a venue, they would call up an artist that had a local fan base.
Hmm.
So what happens a lot of times, like big bands will come through, especially in Los Angeles. People, they're all Hollywood, been there, done that types, and they expect to be on the list, right? So you have all these people that don't want to pay, but they want to show up because they're famous.
Hmm.
And you need to get like real fans, people that like value music. So enter Cindy Alexander. And I started opening for the Bacon Brothers, and then I did some stuff like with Marcone and Edwin McCain, Suzanne Vega, Joan Osborne, the Bangles. I just had a reputation of being able to fill the house.
Hmm.
So I was getting these slots, and then um, I won a show called Star Tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
David Foster's
Hmm.
NBC show. And was it right before that or right after? I can't remember. I had signed with William Morris. So they put me on tour with America and Joe Bonamassa.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah. So it was just something that I kind of built,
But
and I
so,
started
yeah,
building fan bases in other states as well because I was touring across the United States.
right. But so you were able to fill houses, you said, like fill venues.
Yeah.
How did you? Because that didn't happen overnight either, I guess. So
Yeah.
what was the journey there? Like, how did you
Okay.
pivot? I guess. If,
There was a couple things that helped. In LA, it was definitely word of mouth, and my shows were just really fun. And people would meet other people there, and it was just a really good just group of people. But I got a great boost from radio. I had done a show with Janie Lane from Warrant. He played an acoustic show for MTV called Metal Mania Stripped, and we did some radio promo at a station called KLOS, and the Mark and Brian show was one of the biggest shows, and highly syndicated across the U.S. And after I did that show, I was invited to do my own segment. Like Mark and Brian really liked me singing with Janie. I'm like, who's that girl? So I got invited on their show, and that show sold out my entire inventory of CDs
right.
just from playing live on that radio show. And that also really helped broaden my fan base, and I was able to go into those markets. And I did house concerts besides club shows. So I would go, and I still do that. It's still like my favorite thing to do when I'm on tour. I play in people's homes, and usually it's a potluck dinner, so I'll cook too,
Right.
with the host, and people will come and bring food, and we hang out. I do the show, we hang out after. I sell my merch, I sign everything,
That's cool.
and as I said, those are building those personal connections, and those are the people that tell their friends, and it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of one-on-one time. It's me when I'm opening up for a national act at a performing arts center, staying after the show for 2 hours to meet every single person in line. It makes a difference. It's that investment of time, um, in people, in connecting, in your fans, really helps support and fuel an independent artist. So
Yeah.
that it's just doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and not giving up. I mean, it's easier to do something else. It is. And, it,
Yeah.
and it's very time consuming, but I love it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that's very important to hear for musicians who listen, or bands or artists, whatever, who are struggling with the same thing. But so when you're in that whole process, it's
Yeah.
because like you said, it doesn't happen overnight. So how, I don't want to use the word motivated, but how did you how did you stay disciplined, I should say, to keep doing it?
That's a good question. Part of that discipline comes from passion and purpose. When you know who you are and what you were put on earth to do, there is nothing that's going to stop you. And I mean, I remember my parents saying, you know, you sure you don't want to go to medical school? You want to be a lawyer? What do you want to do? We'll pay for it. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. And I remember my dad saying, how long are you going to do this? Like, as long as it takes, as long as I want to do it, you know? And they came around, they did. And my parents were incredibly supportive of me. But at the beginning, it was me standing up for myself. And I still, to this day, have to stand up for myself. I have to stand up for the material that I want to put out, how I want it presented. You know, whether or not you're signed to a label, you still need to have control over what you're putting out into the world. It's important.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's very interesting. Was there anything else you did to keep you in line with your goal, rather beyond what you just said?
Look, it's not, I definitely had periods of my life where I lost my way. You know, I remember somebody gave me at one point had gone through a breakup that just really sent me into you know, a tornado spin. Um, and I stopped writing. I'd also gotten involved with some people in the music business that were completely shady and abusive. Um, Definitely was sexually harassed and put in really horrible situations. I was locked in a sauna
Wow,
with
shit.
somebody who, under the premise of the stereo is really good in here, and this is where I want to hear your music.
What the fuck?
Um,
That's terrible.
it is.
Yeah.
These are things that really happen, and um, I went through some pretty traumatic things that I went into writer's block. And one of my dad's best friends, he was actually in the construction business, but he was a closet writer. And he gave me a book. It was called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And I started doing that, and it did get me back on track. Um, it's something creativity is almost like a muscle. You have to work it out. You have to do it. It's not just you can't just like sometimes wait for inspiration. You have to kind of, you have to dig a little bit, and you have to kind of write the things that are never going to see the light of day so that you can clear those cobwebs and get to the gem. You have to sometimes write song A, B, C, and D to get to song E. That's the one that's going to make it on the record, the one that you're really proud of. Sometimes things come to me and they are 100% completely inspired. Um, there's a song I wrote called My Favorite Artist. And that was a song that I wrote in 15 minutes. It came out the way you hear it. I mean, it was that the release is my demo. It was one take. I had just written the song the day before. And it was just me looking out my window and seeing the most incredible sunset. And I said to my husband, I said, God is my favorite artist. And then I sat down at the piano and I wrote the song, right? There are other songs that are inspired, but then need to be crafted. And you have to have the wisdom and experience to know that, to go, okay, this is really a great idea. Thank you, God, for the inspiration. Um, Now I need to do my work. And as an artist, I craft and I sculpt and I play with the words and I play with the melody and I work it out until it's correct.
Mm.
And an example of that is the song that came out today, Broken But Beloved.
Mhm.
Very inspired. Had been listening to a song by Peter Himmelman called Impermanent Things, which it touched my heart so deeply. And because my mom was dying and I was, Googling impermanence and, you know, pondering what it means to me, I sat down and I wrote this song, and it was good, but it was not yet great. And I knew that I really wanted to work with this producer, Ross Hogarth, and I sent it to him. And he loved the idea, but he pushed me and pushed me. He's like, "You can do better than that. You can do better. No, no, no. You got to take it somewhere. You got, and he kept pushing me until the result is Broken But Beloved, which is out today.
Mm.
Now, it was interesting because somebody at my label wanted to edit that song down to like 3.5 minutes instead of 4:24 or whatever it is.
Right.
And I said, no, you can't do it, because I didn't write this song to be a hit song. I wrote this song to be what it is, to be my art. And if you start sculpting it, yeah, it might sound more like a pop song on the radio, but every word, every phrase, every section is important to me. And I'm at the point in my career where I don't need to please anyone else. I write songs because I have to, and I write songs for my fans, and they don't care if it's 3.5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
or over 4.
Yeah.
So, it all depends on what you're going for.
Mm.
And I know who I am and what I create and where I am in my life. I'm not 21 years old, and I just want to make music that is true and that I can be proud of.
Mm. This reminds me because I've been speaking to two other artists this week, and they all said very similar to what you just said, and that's how, or how can I phrase it, how the importance of being able to express whatever it is you want to express without thinking it should be one way or should be another way. And just like you said with this song, uh, that was just what you felt was best. You didn't want to, for example, cut it down to 3.5 minutes.
Right.
You and it's so funny having seen this red thread going through these conversations this week, and yeah, it's very. I think also as fans, like fans of your music, fans of any music,
Mhm.
myself included, is you you want to see the artists you like. You want to see them express themselves. You don't want to have really an edit just because it might go bad on the radio. The fans don't
No,
really care, right?
they don't. And like there's another song on my record. It's called Lightning. And it was definitely misinterpreted and taken personally by some people at the label. And the point is it wasn't directed at them. I'm on a label that allows me, who is not blonde and not 21. I don't know if you heard that song, but there's a line, I'm not blonde or 21.
Hmm.
Um, they allow me to continue to make music. Even if I'm out of the demographic that is, selling millions of records and, hip singing. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, but it was really important to me that that song be put out there because it's about the music industry, and it's about continuing to do what you do and be who you are, whether or not someone else believes in you. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
Hmm.
You don't like my song, you don't like what I have to say, fine, don't listen to me. But don't tell me that I can't say it, and don't try to change my lyrics.
Hmm.
Don't cut that out of my song. This is
Hmm.
who I am and this is what I want to say. And I was very appreciative at the end of the day that I was able to put that song out uncensored and unedited, the same way I was able to put out Broken But Beloved unedited. So I'm very, very grateful for that support.
Hmm.
And, um,
Yeah, it seems like a
it's,
great relationship with that label, and which is
yeah, I
perfect.
love them. They're phenomenal. They're great people, really great people.
Hmm.
Their hearts are in the music, and they do everything they can to support their artists.
Yeah.
It's hard. There is no money coming in right now for record labels. No, the artists aren't touring. people aren't buying music, as you know, they're just streaming it and getting it for free. So,
Mm.
I still have to do a lot on my own. I'm still that indie artist. I went out and found some people on Fiverr to make videos for me. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they made some. The label makes some content clips and stuff, but they couldn't make full videos, and I wanted to have full videos because I can't tour. So as I said, I need that content to put out. So I went out and I found some amazing artists. I found this guy Anik in Bangladesh who did a hand drawn animated video for Try Try Try, and I
Cool.
found just exquisite dancer named Emphas from Russia who has done 2 videos for me so far, is working on a third, and the first one releases next week, it's for Broken But Beloved. And I figure if Sia has Maddie Ziegler, I can have Emphas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. That's good
But
to
it's
hear.
great. Yeah, I never would have met these people were it not for the challenge of having to figure out,
Mm.
how am I going to make this content, and I did it. And I'm so proud of their work and so happy to have that collaboration.
Mm. Yeah.
So where
Yeah.
there's a will,
Seems
there's
good.
a way.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to ask you about, like you mentioned before, the NBC's Start Tomorrow, this
Yeah.
competition. I'm just curious, what's the experience being in a TV competition like that? Is it like the Idol, or is it similar, or?
Yes. But it was online. So
Right.
it was the first online voting series where you would
Mm.
go online and watch the clips and vote for NBC. It was their very first online streaming show. And it was based on American Idol, but using original songs.
Wow, cool.
Um, Honestly, I signed a NDA, a non-disclosure. So there's things I can't tell you. But I can tell you that I hated it. Um, when it's reality shows are always edited, and that's
Mm.
just what you have to remember. So it looks like somebody might not like somebody. That's not necessarily the case. It was a lot of pressure. I had a stalker.
Wow.
Um, I it was so, 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 so stressful. And at the end of the day, the contract that I won was so ridiculous and so overreaching that I turned it down.
Mm.
So the
I
show
mean, yeah,
ended.
that was what my, I mean, my perception of these shows were. What
Mhm.
you're saying now, like it sounds, yeah, toxic, I guess.
Yeah, it's toxic.
But what was that thing about the stalker? Was that someone on the show, or just someone?
No, it was somebody who just was posting
Right.
really horrible, horrible things
Hmm.
and speaking on the names of my family members and pretending to be my family members on there. And it was bad. It was really bad.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds bad. Uh, but
But
so,
yeah, I had a physical stalker too that showed up at my door. So yeah.
wow. I'm sorry to hear that. There's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of shit. I mean, yeah, especially
Yeah.
women have to go through in whatever it is, career.
I think I think it's both. I think men and women are maybe it's disproportional, but it can happen both ways. And I've seen it happen both ways. You
Yeah, of
know,
course, but I mean, I still think it's, yeah, majority women that gets handed a worse card, whatever you want to call it.
well, yeah, I think that the Me Too movement, I mean, it's real. And there's a song on my new record, it's called Power of You. And like I thought that I was over, the sauna thing I told you about.
Mm,
And there's more. I mean, I could probably do an entire podcast on stuff like that.
mm,
But I thought I was over it. And then when people started coming out and telling their stories, you hear the word trigger, and I used to laugh at that and go, oh, that's like psychobabble. But it's true. Like I started remembering things and remember it turned, and then I saw the Roger Ailes story. I can't remember the name of maybe it was a Bombshell. I think that was it.
right.
And that made me write Power of You. And it's about the first verse is talking to somebody who is wielding their power over women. And then it goes to, talking to anybody who will listen to me. There's a line about learn from my bruises, burn from my scars. I'm telling people, and to, not to give up their own power. And I believe in the power of you, the power of me. And yeah, so it's a real thing. I know it's not just women, but it is, I guess, the time that women are talking about it. And I don't mind having a seat at that table because I don't want my girls. I have twin daughters that are 11 years old. I do not see, now I get teary about this. I do not want my girls to go through what I did. It would just, so you have
Yeah,
to be open about it. You have to talk about it.
I completely understand. And we just had a daughter, me and my fiance too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You don't want that at all. So yeah, I completely understand. It's
And it might be why I'm so protective of my kids on social media and why like TikTok kind of blew my mind, because I was like, oh, I could see that as a breeding ground. Um, but yeah, I think that's another thing as artists, I've been at this a long time, and at the beginning I would write about my dysfunctional relationships, and there were very angsty songs, and but as I get older and more experienced, and I have, you know, lessons that I can share, that maybe somebody won't make the mistakes that I did, or won't end up in a situation like I did because I was so naive. So it's just, it's just part of what I do. It's, as I said, you're given these gifts, you're supposed to give them back. How can I share my art in a way that can maybe speak for someone that doesn't have those words, um, or put something in perspective, or let somebody know that they're not alone. That to me, that's a wonderful thing to do. And here's another kitty that's coming to say hello.
right there.
Adopt, don't stop.
Right. No, but yeah, Cindy, thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's tough, and yeah, obviously no one wants that for anyone to experience. But yeah, so thank you for sharing
Yeah.
your experience. I think it's important to get out. But so fast forward to now. I mean, to me, to me, it seems like all those past experiences you've had have made you obviously this person you are today, which seems very confident, strong, and you doing your music. You have your passion still. You're still going for it, which is really good to see.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've 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 been through the ringer a few times.
Mm.
Um, cancer was definitely a turning
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I was ready to walk away from music and just, I'm sorry, is it too loud? Can you hear my kids' Zoom going on? Are you okay?
Oh, I should be okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you mind if I step away and close the door? Is that
Oh, yeah.
okay?
Yeah. Yeah. That's totally fine.
Let me just close it because I hear them and they're loud and it's bothering me.
Yeah.
Hold on just
Yeah.
a second. I'm just lying here in bed. Hold on a sec.
Yeah.
All right. That is kind of a nice thing these days, is that, okay, I can lie in bed and do an interview.
Yeah.
Um, so what were we saying?
You're talking about the breast cancer and
Oh,
walking
breast
away.
cancer. Yeah. So I just, I didn't know what was going to happen, and I just wanted to be able to spend as much quality time with my family as possible. And I went to Joshua Tree just for like a day to kind of be with nature, be with the kids. And um, my car died as soon as we got to the base camp. And I called the AAA. AAA guy comes out and says, you can go in to the park, to Joshua Tree, and go hiking, but you can't turn your car off because there's no reception in the park. I don't have a new battery, and you need to recharge this car. And if you can't start your car, I can't find you. So I drive my family in to go hiking. They all went hiking and I sat in the car. But I wrote a song called Old Dreams. And I'd posted that, like a clip of it, and also a story about how I was having a problem with the insurance company. They didn't want to cover part of my surgery.
Right.
And a man named Kirk Passage heard the story, and he was one of the entertainment attorneys who was on the other side of that Star Tomorrow show.
Right.
He knew my whole story. And I'd also met him years before that through my dad. My dad was a mediator, and Kirk was one of the attorneys in the mediation. And when the mediation was over, and my dad knew that he was an entertainment lawyer, he's like, "Oh, you need to hear my daughter's music." And Kirk's like, "Oh, no, not this again." But Kirk had heard it and he liked it, and we had met because of that. So he'd been following me this whole time. He reached out and he said, "I think I can help you. I also deal with insurance companies. Let's talk." And when he called me in, he said, "I've got a proposition for you. I can do a pro bono work regarding your insurance claim. We can do a class action lawsuit because this is just wrong." He's like, "Or I see that you're making a record." And I said, "Yeah, I'm just kind of writing my way through cancer." And he goes, "Well, do you have enough money to finish it?" I said, "Not yet. I'm fan funding it, but it's a recession, so there's not as much money. People don't have as much to donate, but I'll get there." And he's like, "Well, here, I'll either do the lawsuit or let me help you finish the record." And I looked at him like, "Well, what do you want for that?" And he said, "No, I love your music and I want you to make this record." I'm like, "I want to make the record." So he would come in during the making of the record. And when it was done, he said, "You need to do something with this." And I said, "Look, I'm just glad that I'm alive and that I was able to make this record." He's like, "No, you need to do something with this." And I said, "Well, then you should start a label." It's like, "Maybe I will." And he started Blue Alon.
Right. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's good.
Yeah. He's like a musical savior, I know, to a lot of people.
Hmm.
So he turned me around and got me started again, and I've been making music with them ever since.
Oh, that's good. That's nice
Yeah.
to hear. Um, I mean, yeah, if you don't mind me asking, if you don't want to talk about that, that's totally fine, obviously. But having breast cancer and just cancer, obviously, that's terrific. So, I mean, if you feel like sharing any of that experience, what, I mean, it sounds stupid, but what's that whole process like, I guess? Because obviously,
Okay. No, I will talk about anything. You can always ask me anything. Okay.
okay,
Because I don't have anything to hide, and I put the things that I would think would be too scary to talk about in person, I'll put in songs because I have to let it out. I don't
hmm,
want to be burdened down you know, by truth. So I share it. Um, my parents had both had cancer. My mom and dad both had breast cancer. My dad had prostate cancer. They had skin cancer. Mom had bladder cancer. I mean, it was in my family. My grandmother had had breast cancer. I knew that I was at risk, and I was very involved in charities and consortiums that had to do with breast cancer. So I knew what to look for. I knew that when I felt asymmetry in my breast. So it's one thing to have like cysts.
hmm,
It's another thing if you only have it on one side and not the other. That's they would call that asymmetry. You need to watch for that. And yes, they can be hormonal. They can come like the month you're having your period and then go away. But if it's on one side and not the other, you need to watch out for that. And I'm also telling you this because men get breast cancer too. And my dad had it, as I
oh,
said. And it's on the rise, and men don't talk about it.
hmm,
And the same way that women should be manually giving themselves breast checks, so should men. You have a beautiful fiance, just feel each other up, okay?
hmm,
Check your bodies. You know your body, you've lived in your body your whole life. No doctor can tell you better than what you know about your body. So when a doctor told me to take my foot off the emergency pedal, this is nothing. I'm like, no, I want an MRI. It's like nothing is showing up. I don't see anything on the ultrasound. I'm like, I want an MRI. Both of my parents have had breast cancer. So the MRI lit up. There was something there. but they couldn't biopsy it because they couldn't find it again on the ultrasound. So I said, I want my biopsy while I'm in the MRI machine. And I found a doctor that could do it.
Wow.
And sure enough, it was a very aggressive form of cancer. But that was me, like, really advocating for myself and making the phone calls, getting through, not waiting for somebody else to call to get me an appointment. No, I did it. And I pressed the back line when it said, if you're a doctor, press 4. I pressed 4 so that I could get somebody to pick up the phone. And I tackled it, and I went head on. And yes, it was scary. And it's interesting because I didn't cry until the night before the surgery, because at that point I realized I'd never been under general anesthesia. And I knew that at that point I was literally putting my life in someone else's hands. And I think that, not only being a turning point, in my career with whatever, with what happened with Kirk and Blue Lawn, it was a turning point in life that I am not always in control. And, really, embracing a higher power, faith. And I just, I went into it. I went into that journey and I shared my way through it. And I was very open about everything. About having expanders in my chest was very painful.
Hmm.
Um, I went through 3 surgeries. In fact, I have to have surgery again because it turns out I had reconstruction. I had a double mastectomy. And then I found out right before the pandemic, my cats are, by the way, fighting like right next to me.
That's okay.
I found out that the implants that I have were recalled. Like, they can
Right.
cause cancer themselves. So now I
Shoot.
have to take them out. And I was going to do that last March or April, but then
Hmm.
everything shut down. The hospital shut down. I couldn't have the surgery. So I'm going to have that again this summer. And one of the things that's scary is every time, like, I have to think about surgery, there's a little bit of like a PTSD thing involved. And I also, the other thing that happens is every time you go in, they're going to have to biopsy again all the tissue that's taken out. So I am, you know, almost 8 years out, but it's still scary. I have the kind of cancer that often recurs,
Right.
and it's it's better than it was. Like, the fear does subside. Um, at first, it's all one can think about, and it was so much part of my identity, who I was, that I was this person that had breast cancer, or I was a breast cancer survivor. Now, this was the first year, and maybe only because it was the pandemic, that I didn't remember July 26th. July 26th was my surgery, my double
Hmm.
mastectomy. So, it starts to be in the rear view, and I'm definitely a better person for it. Um, Certain areas of my life opened up because of it in a very positive way. I wouldn't suggest to anybody to get cancer to improve their life,
No.
but, it changed me, and it changed my life for the better.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I mean, it's tough. I mean, because cancer, yeah, obviously you know this, but yeah, it's so common,
Mhm.
which is also so scary. Like you said, all most of your family sound like they've had it too, which
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my granddad, he passed away because of prostate cancer.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, my fear is, yeah, like I think many people have this fear is to have cancer. Um, so how did you react when they told you had cancer? Was it immediate freak out, or was it like,
Well, I knew. Okay, so when I had the biopsy, is this okay that I'm like leaning back? Can you see
yeah,
me
yeah,
still?
whatever is comfortable?
I'm like really comfortable. I'm in bed. My cats are fighting. Um, okay, so I had the biopsy, and I remember the 4th of July weekend was coming up, and I had my biopsy on the 3rd, and I had to wait the entire holiday weekend to get the results. And when I didn't get the results immediately on the Monday after the weekend, I knew what it was. I knew that it was positive because knowing so much about cancer, I know that they get the biopsy back. If there's anything positive, then they're going to send it out to another lab to find out if it's estrogen receptor positive, if it's triple negative. They're going to do more tests and it's going to take longer to get the final results. So I knew just from my experience dealing with people with cancer that I know what this is going to be. But when you actually get the call and someone says you have breast cancer, it's all you think about is, especially with kids, like, how, am I going to live through this? That's the first thought. Then the second thought is, of course I am, because I have to, so it's, I think it, as with anything that threatens your life, whatever that may be. And I think that, which is maybe why I understand so much of the trauma of this past year of the pandemic, because people have been watching their friends die, and they've seen things on TV and radio, and they're Googling online about every single symptom, and they're like, and in the back of their mind, whether or not somebody says it or not, they're like, am I going to get it and die? And I know what that feeling is. And it's terribly stressful. And we're not done with the pandemic yet. Nobody's saying it's over. You have people telling you there could be another wave. They're telling you to double mask. There's all this stuff. Their media is definitely continuing to make money off of fear, whether it's true or not. And we all play into that. And that fear can be devastating. And you really have to stay active. You have to exercise. You have to get your nose out of every symptom and every sad story, because it's just going to make it worse. So I get it. I know what this trauma is that we're all going through, because I've already been through something similar.
Yeah, I mean, it's just awful. Cancer is so shit. I mean, yeah, it's heavy.
But I had it easier than others. I chose to have a double mastectomy so that I didn't have to have chemo.
Right.
I decided to treat it externally instead of internally, because I had seen what had happened to my parents. And I didn't want to destroy my heart. I didn't want to destroy my bones with, my lungs with radiation. I'm like, if I take them both off and my lymph nodes were negative, then I had a choice. You can maybe give yourself, 2% more chance of survival by pumping poison through your body. No, that's okay. No, I'm not going to. But
Yeah, chemo is tough.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in that sense, I had it easy because I didn't do that. But it does other things to your body. It does other things because it's a hormonal cancer. It does other things to women,
Right.
which I'm sorry, but you wouldn't understand it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, yeah, thanks for sharing. It's tough. I mean, it's just there's no really anything to say beyond. I mean, I'm glad you gone through it, and yeah, you look healthy and you seem healthy, and hope it's gonna stay that way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I hope that you and yours stay healthy too, and you just you have to be vigilant and have to get checked, go get your, go to the doctor on a regular basis, exercise, eat well,
Exactly. Yeah.
But there are things, one thing that people have to also realize, there are things that we're genetically predisposed to. It's in your genes. There's nothing you can do. You can live the perfect life and you still might get sick, but if you stay healthy, you have a better chance of recovering. So,
Exactly. But yeah, well, yeah, thanks, Indy. Let's maybe let's leave the cancer bit a bit, and yeah, yeah, I'm just glad that you're okay now, and it seems. I hope the future's gonna stay that way too. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
But so maybe on a happier note,
Yeah.
you have a new record coming out on the, is it 23rd of April? You said.
Yeah. On the 23rd. Yep.
Yeah, and that's available anywhere, I guess.
It is, and they're the first two singles are already out. Try, 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 and Broken But Beloved have already been released. Room at the Bottom comes out in a few weeks. Pre-orders are open at bluealon.com, and I'm signing CDs, and there's some really cool packages. Um, let's see. Yeah, there's this. It's we're rolling it out. I'm
Cool.
excited. I love this record. I think it's the best one I've made so far. I worked with just a dream team of musicians. They're people that you've heard on hit records, I'm sure. It was produced, most of it was produced by Sean Hurley and Vic and Drizzo. Sean Hurley was the bass player and writer of that hit song for Vertical Horizon, Everything You Want.
Mm.
He also played with John Mayer and Casey Musgraves and Colby Calais. Vic and Drizzo, drummer. Those two are just a famous rhythm section, but played with Alanis Morissette, Chris Cornell, Lizzo. And they brought in Dave Levita, who was in Tuesday Night Music Club and plays Lana Del Rey, Sheryl Crow. Let's see who else was there. Mike Farrell, Macy Gray,
Cool.
uh, also plays with Alanis in Alanis's band. So, I mean, they knocked it out of the ballpark. They really did. It was so much fun working with them. And then Grammy Award winning Ross Hogarth
Mm.
produced Jewel. He produced Kev Mo, Van Halen. You know, he's a producer engineer. I'd always wanted to work with him. Had so much fun with him on Broken But Beloved. He brought in Brian McLeod on drums, who was the Tuesday Night Music Club player on Sheryl Crow's record, and Lauren Gold, who plays with the Who. He played piano, and I'm trying to think. Greg Saran, guitar player for the Goo Goo Dolls. So yeah, it was. I had this amazing, like, it's like rock and roll fantasy camp,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
working with these people. So
Perfect.
they really elevated the songs and the experience.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I really look forward to hearing the record, and I'm gonna check out the songs that are already out because I didn't know that. So yeah.
I'll make sure you get a copy of it. There should.
Oh yeah.
I hope Melissa sends you a link to the record. If she didn't, I'll make
Hopefully.
sure.
I don't know if she
Yeah,
did actually. Maybe she did. I need to double check that.
yeah. Double check because
Yeah.
there's UK with a super secret link to the entire record for people like you. So
Yeah, yeah,
go check.
yeah.
And if you don't,
I will.
tell me. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
Cindy, it was a real pleasure talking to you, and all I can say is I mean, best of luck with the record, and thanks for sharing all the good stuff and the bad stuff, and I guess that's just life. But yeah, thank you for being so open.
Well, thanks for having me, and I really mean it. You're going to come to Big Sur, and I'm going to meet you in person someday.
Yeah, let's do that.
Little one, it's your little one and your
Exactly,
fiance.
exactly, exactly. Well, thank
I
you,
wish you.
Cindy.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Cindy. Pleasure having you on, and I hope you, the listener, enjoyed it as well. And again, thank you, Cindy, for sharing all that personal stuff with cancer and all that shit. And also, don't forget to check out Cindy's new record coming out in April. It sounds to be a killer record. And also check out her music from her earlier records on Spotify. I'll leave a link to that below as well, of course. But yeah, real pleasure having you on, and real pleasure that you come and listen every week. And again, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you are listening and watching this show. I really appreciate your support. But that's it for this week. I will see you guys next week again. So take care and see you soon.